Alrighty team, so it is the end of the month, which means it's time to start thinking about reflecting on the month that's been and setting some goals for the month ahead. To do this process, we're using 3 journals, or well, I am. So that is my everyday bullet journal, which has things like my actions list, it has my monthly setups, daily checklists, all of that kind of thing. We have my yearly collections journal, which has year-long trackers. So for example, my 101 things list, also my year-long challenge tracker and other pages like that. And we've also got my brainstorming book for kind of messy notes. And this is where I did my goal setting for the whole year. So we're gonna need to go back into here to pull out more action steps, check off progress we've made, all of that kind of thing. To start with though, we're going to have a look at this one. This is my action list for the month, and I put this one beside my habit tracker because I thought I was going to have more daily habits to track that were related to my goals, so I wanted to just kind of summarize them at the bottom here and then actually track them on this habit tracker, but as you can see I only actually ended up with 1 daily action. So I have changed that for next month. I like this kind of review process, figure out what's working, what's not, and make changes to move forward. But these were effectively the actions that I was looking at in January, or the ones that I was working on. As a reminder, the goals that I set in my goal setting video for this first quarter of the year, or at least the ones that I was working on in January, were strengthening the JashiiCorrin community with more opportunities for genuine connection, doing things on my 101 things list, traveling to the US, hosting an in-person JashiiCorrin community meetup when I was in Washington DC, doing my low spend / no spend challenge, and regular live streams. Along with that, I also ended up adding in the goal of reorganizing my office because that was kind of a long-term project. I wasn't initially intending on working on it during January, but it just kind of ended up that way, and very pleased with the results. From those goals, the action steps that I had were to review my no spend tracker, which we're going to do in this video, write my spend trend statement for the month, which again we'll do later, make a survey for live times, which did happen, share my live survey, which did happen, review the live survey, and pick live times. So all of those ones have been finished. We had the 101 thing task of writing a letter to my 2024 self. I fully unpacked my school stuff. I did get a new floor mat, and it is so nice. I am so appreciative of the fact that I took the time to do this one in particular, because it didn't really take very long. It was just something that I keep meaning to do and putting off. We had do a live swatching, which did happen. That happened yesterday, and we're gonna end up having another one, but that's all good. Tell Eric of flight times happened. Review Zach's accommodation ideas happened. Book accommodation for our trip, yes. Make a JCCWDC interest form, which also happened, and I shared that form in all of the places. Get office storage happened, soft finish the office organization happened. You can see there's like a lot of things that were actually happening, and part of the reason I feel is 1, high motivation due to the start of the year. This is my January actions list. Also 2, having this all set up and in my journal ahead of time. So before the month actually started. I find that if I don't have it in my journal before the month starts, a lot of the time I just don't actually get around to doing it. So having the list here, knowing what I needed to work through, super helpful. But moving on to the second half of the list, so we had pick videoable 101 things. That one hasn't happened, and it's going to be one we have to move forward. So I am going to put a little arrow to indicate that I'm going to migrate that one forward, and I'm going to transfer it to a separate list just to make sure that I know what it is I want to do. That separate list is just going in my brainstorming book. We also have the selection of the 101 things for February, which we're going to do as part of this video as well. There are some that I have already picked out, but it'd be nice to review the 101 things list and just see if there's anything else that I want to get done. We did schedule the community hangout and the live streams, and although I'm not transferring this over, I am going to write it down just so I know that I have to do it for the month. For the USA trip itinerary, we did make a brainstorm of the places we wanted to hit up. We made that into a short list, but we haven't assigned that to days. And I'm not going to do that today, so we can migrate that one as well. A couple more that didn't get done, so figuring out the pre-trip forms, filling in the pre-trip forms, booking tickets for any of the places that we want to visit, but I did today pick my table mate gifts, so I can tick that one off, but these 3 here need to be transferred. Then we have all of the steps here related to picking our hangout place for the JashiiCorrin community hangout in Washington DC. And very much ideally, I would have gotten that sorted this month, but it hasn't happened. If you have any recommendations for where 30 to 40 or so people could hang out in Washington DC that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, I would love to hear about it. Rather than writing these out in full, I'm just going to write down JCC hangout location. All of those can get migrated because that is not a Today Me problem. In terms of our weekly actions, so hangout/live stream, those ones happened each week, which was awesome. That kind of community engagement thing, kind of strengthening our community, which is one of my main focuses. In terms of budgeting population, I started populating the budget last week, but I didn't actually finish it from memory. And in terms of the reviewing of non-essential spending, that one didn't really happen. So we're gonna put a cross for reviewing of spending, and I'm gonna put like what is effectively a half tick for the budgeting population. So rather than, we'll just draw it here. So rather than this, I'm just doing that part of it to say that it's like partially done. The daily actions though, I have been checking off over here. And honestly, I can't remember whether I filled in my no spend versus yes spend days, but we're going to do that in this video, so I'm just gonna check them off now. So we just need to make sure that we actually do them. In terms of filling out my 5-year journal, I have done that for the entire month, but we're not actually at the end of the last day of the month yet. I usually fill it in just before I go to bed, so we'll leave that one unchecked for now. Now as we've reviewed our current action list though, I am going to jump into my yearly collections journal. We're gonna have a look at the trackers in there associated with my goal setting. As I kind of suggested before, my yearly collections journal are for yearly collections, or effectively pages, collections, references, layouts that I'm going to want to reference for the entire of the year, and I don't want to have to set up with each new journal. Because I usually have 2 to 3 everyday journals in any given year, I don't want to have to write this information out again. So just writing out my word of the year once. Just writing out my 101 things list once. Here though, I'm just running my eyes over the list, making sure that I have checked off any of the tasks that I have already completed, and making sure to write down the date for their completion, and also just looking to see if there are any 101 things tasks I can pull out of this list to add to my February action list. So the only one that I can really add to the list, or at least that I'm going to, is going to the US, because I know that February 1 is a short month, so you're kind of fitting the same amount of stuff into less time to start with, but also it's just gonna be really busy for me. I have a very packed February in terms of a social calendar, so trying to work on a whole bunch of goal setting stuff and goal getting stuff is going to be a little bit more tricky, especially because in March I'm going to the US. Well, I mean, I'm going in February, like at the very end of February. So I'm actually gonna need to prepare all of my content and stuff like that to release while I'm not here. So I don't just have to worry about the February content with the shortened amount of days, I also have less time because of my social calendar and more to do because I'm trying to get all of these things prepared. The US. So having just the one of my 101 things list on here is actually probably enough. Now as I've said that, I actually also need to add celebrating my friend's wedding, because that is one of the social events that I'm going to. So just 2 things from the 101 things list is probably going to be enough. Setting that list aside though and flipping on over. So we have my 23 23s in 2023. This is 23 things to do 23 times in the year of 2023. And you can see I'm making fairly good progress on those. We do have a couple to check off though, I think. So I did do another live stream and I did make a bonus video. Actually, I think I made a couple of bonus videos, didn't I? Because we had the faux memo one and the washi tape haul. I don't have anything to add to movies, TV shows, artists, podcasts, games. No, I don't think I have anything to add there. Meat-free dinners, new foods tried. Oh yep, we tried our hand at making a Cobb salad. We hadn't made a Cobb salad before. The rest of these are probably looking okay, but along with checking them off in terms of putting a dot here on the little tracker, I also like to write down a descriptor or a date depending on which thing I'm looking at. So, movies watched so far, we have 7 for the year, 3 TV show seasons watched. I mean, started, because, you know, The Last of Us, we don't actually have the full season out yet, but I'm gonna be finishing it off. I've started it, it counts. New artists, games played. So, new foods tried was a Cobb salad. We can put that one in here. And flipping over, we can note that we had a live stream on January 30th. And if we flip over again, we also had the bonus videos. So that was the faux memo one and the washi tape one. You'll note that I've actually already completed one of my 2323s, and that's because, so we had a discussion about this in the Discord and whether or not it was okay or allowed to do all of my save $100 at once. And one of the points raised was around the intention for putting it on my list. So was the intention just to build up my savings amount, or was the intention to build a saving habit? Now, I'm pretty good at saving as it is. I don't really like to spend unnecessarily. So I decided that having all of that money put aside at the same time still aligned with the reason that it was on my list to start with. So that one has already been done. Flipping over though, we have the book club tracker with January and February's reads in there already. And then we have the challenge tracker. So this one we can also fill out. I think I've been doing a very good job at this challenge. I was kind of skeptical, I guess, to see, you know, how well I could keep it up, especially because one of my main spending areas that I do have an issue with is in the realm of food, in particular fast food, takeout, that kind of thing. The way I've set up the challenge though is that I am still allowed those things, but they have to be planned in advance and like agreed upon between myself and my partner Vogel. So in terms of our yes spend days, or days of spending that went against the rules, we actually only had 3 for the month, which I think is pretty dang good. That's like roughly a 90% success rate. Of course, I will be waiting until the end of today to fill out this last box here, and this spending section I can't fill in until the very, very end of the month, once I know how much we have spent total, but I am pleased with my progress. So, after this we have my We Are What We Repeatedly Do, or effectively like my routine builder page. And I was planning on doing my hair dyeing today, but I'm probably going to end up doing it later this week because this weekend we're going to a wedding. So I'd kind of rather just do the hair dyeing as close to the wedding as possible. Maybe not like too close, but you know, within reason. There are some things we can check off though. For instance, we have done our week 5 meal planning. We have done our laundry, and by that I mean I have done my laundry. In terms of the grocery shopping and the towels though, they are getting done, but not by me. And because this is supposed to be my routine builder, so me doing these things, I am going to put them in black. So even though they happened, because I didn't do them, I'm putting a black dot there. Technically speaking, I didn't give myself a day off last week, so I am going to put a black dot there. I think that's technically a discrepancy between this tracker and my everyday journal. I think I might have been lying to myself in my everyday journal when I put that in, but a genuine day off I did not give myself last week. And in terms of the weekly reset, it didn't really happen in full last week, so I'm going to put a black dot there for that one. For reference, I'm currently in week 5, but I'm only on the Tuesday of week 5, so I've still got time for my day off, and I am going to get one because we're going away this weekend. And my weekly reset usually happens on a Sunday, so that one I can't say whether I have or haven't done it yet because the time has not come for that to happen. At this stage, I'm planning on doing my monthly reset later today, so I'm not going to fill that one in. And the page after this one, I don't have to do anything on because this is my future me problems. I'm not going to, pick anything out of here. I just check it off as these things happen, and I don't need to do anything with this because I don't need to use this part of the page until the last day of the year. Now as we've had a look at my yearly collections though, we can jump back into my everyday bullet journal and fill out my month in review page, or monthly reflection. The kind of scaffold of this page is something that I set up as part of my monthly setup process, and then filling it in I usually do at the end of the month, but this month I've kind of been doing it as I go, and I think I might continue with that just because my memory is not necessarily ideal, so having these things filled in as they happen is just a little bit easier. To fill this one in though, I'm just taking some time, putting on some music and going through each of the reflection questions that I set up for myself. On the left-hand page we have places to list out things that I consider wins, or like progress or milestones that I met, places to list out any challenges that I faced, and then an improvement section to think about how could I make this easier or better in the next month. Down the bottom of that page, I also have a memory space, so I can list out any special happenings from the month that was. And then over onto the right-hand page, the top section is for my finances, or kind of like a financial review, including how much I spent, how many yes and no spend days I had, what my success rate was in my no spend days, and then there's also a place to write out that spend trend or spending habit statement. That right hand page also has a space to talk about what I did or didn't like with regards to my bullet journal, a section to list out all of the goals that I worked on, and then down the bottom of that one we have the looking forward to, nervous about, and note spaces. This is a structure that works pretty well for me, but if you're setting up your own monthly reflection page, make sure that you consider what might be helpful for you to reflect on. You also don't necessarily have to give the same amount of space to things as I've done. For example, I always like to make my wins section bigger than my challenges section. This is in part me trying to combat my negativity bias, but you might find that you want a bigger memory section, or a smaller section about things you're nervous about, or a larger section for goals you're working on. One of the things that really helped me with filling in my reflection this month is the fact that I'm now using a 5-year journal. So a journal that I go and write 3 lines a day, every day, for the next 5 years. In there I've been recording things that are related to the sections on this reflection, so they help jog my memory. When it comes to the wins, a lot of this is just effectively a recap of the stuff that I checked off the actions list. So things like my actions getting populated before January started, getting storage solutions for my office, made a new patron tracker, soft finished my office organization, set up my new filming rig, which we are currently filming on, started my live streaming schedule, which, I mean, schedule is probably a strong word, but I feel like progress has been made and I am celebrating it. We had good participation in the challenges and in the book club from people who are in the challenges in the book club. I made good progress on starting to use scheduling tools better, and we also had an increased date night frequency with Vogel. That was something I was a little bummed that we didn't get to do more of last year, so having 3 dates under our belt when it's only the end of January feels pretty good. In terms of challenges, we had things like some issues with some of my equipment, gluten intolerance, which I haven't been tested for, but the symptoms line up, so yeah, that's not great. Not proven, but highly likely. Lowered motivation, periods of excessive hunger randomly. But then in terms of the improvements for those things, we have paying more attention to my mid-month review. While I did a mid-month review in January, and it was certainly helpful, it could have been made more helpful if I had have paid more attention to it. Setting daily intentions and time blocking them. I'm not very good at time blocking like a week in advance, but time blocking on a daily basis has been hugely helpful. So I want to make sure I'm still doing that, especially in February where I have a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. And then we also have things like setting priorities with regards to my social content, and by this I just meant social media content. So what is actually the most important? What should I be working on first? We have a bunch of memories here, and I know that I didn't have to fill up all of the space, but I wanted to. It's not like I was really at a stretch for filling anything in here. I just kind of had to go back through my 5-year journal and pull some out. I did write my spending habit statement. Even though I haven't completely filled out my no spend challenge, I could still write this down. So I've got my motivation to not spend is higher at the start of the month, and I spend when stressed out. The days where we did end up breaking the no spend were particularly stressful days, so we ended up getting fast food, which wasn't pre-agreed upon. It was kind of an in the moment, stuff it, let's get takeout. Things that I liked in my journal, I liked the weekly reviews that I was doing in here. I liked the check boxes that I put at the top of my weeklies, so effectively tells me that everything on this page has either been done or transferred to a different place. I wrote down that I liked my new Pilot G2 pen, but this is actually a Pilot Juice pen, so I wrote that one down as well. I have a G2, it's alright. I'm not using it currently, I'm using this one, but that's okay. And I wrote down that I liked my Insta schedule page. So that one is here. So my Instagram scheduler and then my posting elsewhere kind of schedule. I haven't necessarily been 100% consistent in using it, but when I do use it, very useful. Things that I didn't like were inconsistent ways of checking off my trackers. So for instance, if we flip back here, we've got X's for this one, but then ticks for this one, and that kind of bothered me. I also never got around to filling out my quarterly goal action space in this journal because I did it in my brainstorming book and it just kind of worked better in my brainstorming book. I felt like I wasted a page with my habit tracker, so the one that we looked at before here, where we effectively have all of this blank space and 2 columns to check things off. That felt like a bit of a waste. And then also unnecessary space left on my book tracker page. So just like all of this extra space between these columns, which really could have been condensed, possibly even been put on the habit tracker page because it wouldn't have taken up that much space. I also listed out the goals that I worked on just for personal reference, and then the things that I'm looking forward to. So the social events of February, that's going to be good, and continuing to work on my self-care and work-life balance kind of tasks. And then the things that I'm nervous about, like getting all of my work done before I go away. Now as my reflection is done though, it's time to jump back into my messy notebook or my brainstorming book, have a look at the messy action plans that I set up in there, and see what we can find in terms of my February action plan. What actions do I want to work on in February to reach my goals? I'm effectively just flipping back and forth through all of my action plans for my different goals and pulling out the things that I want to work on in the month ahead. All of these are getting added to my action steps brainstorm space, and then I'll review these to see which ones I actually want to take to February. This is another one of those processes where I just put on some music, have a look through what I've previously written, and then once I have that brainstorm populated and organized, I can put these things into my February action list in my bullet journal. Into the February pages, you can see I combined the habit tracker with my self-care tracker, so they're all on the same page now, nice and easy there. But what we're working on is the actions list. So the brainstorm is done, it's now just time to populate this page. I like to list all of my one-off and monthly actions first, then my weekly, and then my daily. And the daily ones get tracked on this habit tracker, thus having them beside each other. This one's a nice easy transfer of items, so moving from the brainstorming book into my everyday bullet journal. Again, I just put on some music and I work through that brainstorm, trying to make sure that the tasks that are relevant to each other are closer to each other. So here you can see we have the action list all filled out for February before February starts, which means I am much more likely to get it done. We have slightly fewer weekly actions compared to January and still just the one daily action, but these one-off / monthly actions are meaty. However, I feel like I've done a pretty good job to break them down into smaller steps because, as mentioned, February is going to be busy. I don't have as much time to work on all of this stuff, but hopefully we can get it all done. In general though, we have things related to Discord, so server rules and moderators. We have stuff related to finalizing our trip and the details around that, and also some fun community activities and such. I'm feeling positive about this, but I would love to know, what is a goal that you are working on for the month ahead? Do you have your action list sorted, or are you still yet to make your plan? If you wanted to see even more goal content from me, then be sure to check out the playlist we have at the top right here. Or if you're more interested in the mid-month review that I mentioned before, then the video at the bottom is where it's at. Click or tap on either of those and I'll see you over there.